So, what would you do if you had about $4 million to spend? One thing you could do is stop people from contributing to Los Angeles's largest open air arts installation. So, I realize that a lot of people aren't going to agree with that characterization, so maybe I should back up. Over the last few weeks, there has been a full city block of luxury condos that are abandoned. They haven't been finished. They've been abandoned for the last 5 years. The construction never completed. And some mostly local graffiti artists have taken it upon themselves to go up into the building and start spray painting on them. Some people think this is amazing. Some people think this is an absolute travesty. And some people fall in the middle somewhere, which is totally fine. I think this conversation is for everyone that we're about to have today. And there's been a lot of news coverage on this graffiti issue, but one group that we haven't heard from a lot is the graffiti artists themselves. There is an exception to that. Today's guest, Matthew Stromberg, actually went out and interviewed some of the people who were responsible for the paintings on the side of that building that you're seeing. And you are seeing these all over the place. I mean, drone footage, Instagram selfies taken from inside the building. There's video of people base jumping off the top of it. It's a pretty wild scene. And I found this interesting, but the thing that really hit my interest is this headline right here. The city council is proposing to spend almost $4 million to address this graffiti issue. So this isn't just a question of what the city looks like. It's a question of, okay, what is a price tag going to look like when it comes with it? So anyway, that's today's conversation. Hope y'all dig it. Yeah. So how could you introduce yourself for me?
Sure. My name is Matt Stromberg. I'm an art writer in Los Angeles, freelance art writer. I write a lot for Hyperallergic, which is a great web art periodical. Sometimes LA Times, The Guardian, some other papers, but a lot for Hyperallergic, covering kind of art news. So not really reviews, but how art fits into everything else in society. So labor, urbanism, the city, education, politics, things like that.
So for people who are not familiar with what we're even talking about, there's a building downtown not too far away from what used to be called Staples Center. It's now the crypto.com arena, which we'll reserve comments on. And it looks now, as of, I guess, a few weeks ago, it was this big high-rise building. And now it looks, I'm just going to play some drone footage here. Let me turn the music off here. Now it looks like this.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, just tags on every single floor. And this thing was posted 10 days ago. So it looked like this days ago. So, I mean, it's potentially even more wild right now. So how did you, so you've written an article about this, which I want to talk about.
Yeah.
How did you come to this? What started you off?
So I saw somebody, I think, tweeted or posted somewhere on socials an NBC news clip where a reporter was outside it's 3 towers actually.
Okay, yeah.
Was outside the site. It takes up a full city block. So it's 3 unfinished towers. The reporter was there, saying, look at this, look what happened to this site. There are taggers right behind me. We're not going to talk to them, but they're there doing their vandalism or whatever. And I and a lot of people thought it was pretty absurd, this angle that they were taking, and that they weren't even talking to the actual artists, the actual writers, graffiti writers, who were literally right behind them.
Let's actually back up if we could. Let's actually back up for a bit, because I think it might actually make sense to take a look at this. So I can pull up this piece here. Let me see if I can find this one. Here we go. Yes. So let's just take a look. I think this is the piece that you're talking about here, the news report that you're talking about here.
Canvas, if you will, Taggers going to town on a 53-story high-rise
was
in
NBC
downtown
LA.
LA that was never finished. NBC4's Robert Kovacic joins us with more on that and what authorities intend to do about it. Robert.
Authorities, Colleen, we are hearing from a bunch of them late tonight. We are hearing from Mayor Bass, from Councilmember Kevin De Leon, from the LAPD, who we're not hearing from those responsible. They're actually standing here in the parking lot behind me. We're not going to show them, but they are happy for you to see what they have been.
So it's kind of incredible because legit, there's people standing behind him in the parking lot, and he's just, we're not going to talk to them.
Yeah,
but they're tagging, and then I think a little later, he goes on to they show some more footage, and at some point, oh, here we go. Then there's this little clip here.
Stage this week for the music industry's biggest night.
All right.
We watched as one climbed through a hole in a fence, apparently with little concern they were trespassing. We spoke with one with paint on her pants who told us she was not causing vandalism, but creating art. And tonight, News Chopper 4 caught them at work on their canvas, a 53-story skyscraper. From the ground, this witness calls it a crime of opportunity.
Okay, so that I think maybe paints a picture. So this would be how maybe most people in LA, and not even in LA, I would say if you don't live in LA, if you've heard of this at all, this would be your introduction to it. Is, hey, bunch of people are about to be in town, Grammy's about to happen, and there's these towers that have been all graffitied up. We've heard from the mayor. And here's a shot of some people sneaking into a hole in the fence. And here's a shot of some people, from the chopper. We're out here in the helicopter, shining the spotlight on people. And here's what they're doing. And that's what most people have got. You took a slightly different angle. What did you do?
I'm not a graffiti expert. I'm not in the street art world. So this is like one story I've written in a large spectrum of stories. But I did think it would be important to include the artists' voices. So I just put out a thing on all the socials. I think I just maybe even reposted the NBC story video clip and just said, does anyone know these artists? I'd love to talk to them for a story. And got a few responses. And I reached out to a couple people I know who are in that scene, artists who I've done other stories on from time to time. And said, I'd love to talk to who's ever, been involved in this. Were you there? Do you know anyone who's there? Please give them my info. And then I just looked up their IG tags. I looked up because everyone's name is on the building, right? So I just looked up whatever I could see. I looked them up on Instagram and started messaging people. And from that, I got a few people reaching out to me. Sometimes it would be somebody who was like, I get a call from an unlisted number, and they would say like, this is so-and-so, I'm reaching out for so-and-so just to like kind of vet you in advance, just to see. Oh,
it wouldn't be the person themselves. It'd be like a third party saying, yo, you want to talk to such and such tagger? Yo, I'm reaching out to see if you're cool.
Basically, yeah.
Wow.
So I would, say just what I told you. This is the kind of angle I want to do. I want to include your voice. Here's all your stories I've written, just to put them at ease that I wasn't going to try to make an exploitative, sensationalistic piece out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got a few people who I talked to or wrote back to me, and got those perspectives. I think I have 4 writers in the story.
Yeah. So let's. I'm gonna pull it up here. So jump up to the headline here. Artists make LA graffiti history by painting on abandoned high rises. So, I mean, the picture here is pretty incredible.
It's breathtaking.
I mean, honestly, from the outside, I'm just gonna fully, and you don't have to co-sign this if you don't want. I'm going to fully show my bias here and say it kind of looks cool, man. It's hard to deny.
I think it's breathtaking. I think it's beautiful. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not a street art guy. I can appreciate it when I see a good piece, but it's like I'm not in that world. I'm not like, an advocate for that. But it's like I think just it's stunning, just the sheer, the overall project that they all engaged in, and it's like it's very orderly. It's very well planned out. No one's like covering anybody's tags. Like it seems like there's a very thought. It wasn't all orchestrated, but it's a very thoughtful, collaborative process in a way.
Yeah, and this is where I would, of course, myself, fully admit that I am not that immersed in street art either. I know some people who are, and I know enough to know that I don't know anything, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So, I know as far to know that, going up over somebody else's piece can be disrespectful. And if you're going to do that, you better really truly be better than what their stuff is. But here, looking at this piece, I mean, we're seeing basically, huge skyscraper, few of them. And everybody picked one floor and said, okay, I got this floor. I got this floor. I got this floor. I mean, partially, I think it's maybe because there's room for everybody so far, thus far. But again, it looks, it's just kind of incredible to look at. So instead of just a bunch of, kind of mirror glass, symmetrical, whatever, just kind of, it looked like it's like, oh, there was a blank slate here, and now people have filled it up, and everybody's chosen their little rectangle, and they've done their thing on their own rectangle. You're just looking at it, it's kind of wild to look at.
Yeah, and you can see it from all over downtown. Like they're some of the tallest buildings downtown, and even if you're like a mile away, or they're definitely like iconic. Do you want me to talk about the history of the buildings?
Yeah, that's where you read my mind. Let's do it. Yeah, so
because
maybe that's the important thing here is why is there a building, people using this as a canvas?
Right.
Why is there a canvas in the first place? And you get into this in the first part of your article.
Yeah. So, people who are saying this is like a blight on downtown LA, like this is right across from the former Staples Center where the Grammys are happening, like how embarrassing. But it's like these were abandoned by the developer. This was a planned luxury development, 3 towers, started in 2015 by a Chinese-backed developer, Oceanwide.
Mm-hmm.
2015 to 2019, it was under construction, then it was abandoned. They ran out of money, or they were restructuring their debt or something, put on hold, and never came back to it. And so we've had a construction site, an abandoned construction site, basically in the middle of downtown LA for 5 years.
Right.
It's not pretty. It's not being developed. I think they put $1 billion into it, and they said it would cost another $1 billion to finish.
Right.
So, for people, some people are claiming like, oh, this could be housing. These graffiti artists are like delaying a sale of it. Like no one's going to buy it. I mean, I hope somebody buys it. I hope it's developed. I hope it becomes affordable housing. But that, what is the likelihood of that?
That is an interesting question, which I do want to come to later. But the argument that you're making here is interesting too, because again, the sort of, I think there's sort of a knee-jerk reaction to graffiti, which, look, I understand. I get that. But again, somebody in chat right now just said, Sophie said, yo, the blight, if you want to talk about blight, the abandoned buildings were the blight,
Yeah,
not the
exactly.
graffiti that's on them.
Yeah.
Yo, you left something
Yeah.
for, and the you here doesn't matter who that is. If you are somewhere and you see an abandoned building and it's been abandoned for 5 years, I don't know how that's supposed to make you feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean,
there's a quote in here. I forget who said this, but there's something to the effect of, this is a symbolism for what's the decline of downtown LA. Just I think there's a lot of other symbols of, if you want to talk about a decline of downtown Los Angeles. I mean, you can talk about living conditions, you can talk about a whole bunch of other different things, but I'm not so sure if paint on a building is quite that.
no, no, I think that's a good point. I was just doing my own research, just looking at some of the other stories. Carolina Miranda, who's
Yes, LA
an
Times.
incredible art writer for the LA Times, and she did a story on ghost towers, which this is an example of, and there are others in North Korea and Caracas, where the money comes in and then it dries up, and you're left with a half finished building. And but she said, the taggers at Oceanwide transformed this urban albatross with color and pattern. For that, they've been arrested. The bigger crime is a luxury development that lies empty as thousands inhabit shanties and tents in the streets below. So that's basically what we're saying, that the graffiti is not the symptom, or not the cause of the urban blight, right? It's that these developers thought they could cash in on a luxury development, and I believe the developer, in one thing I read, said that they expected most of the units to be purchased as real estate investments by foreign investors. So the idea of it as housing is even somewhat unrealistic. It was an investment property. So it's not a simple matter of like housing versus graffiti or something.
Right. Yeah. These are 500 luxury condos. I mean, the name,
Right.
the luxury it's in the name. This was not affordable housing. The vast majority of people watching or listening to this is not going to fix your rent problem. This building was not going to help you out there. With rising rates of rent and whatnot. This was not going to be the solution for that, essentially.
Yeah. And one other thing, just about the property, the reason, or one of the reasons that the artists were able to get access to the property is because the developers allegedly stopped paying their security company. The security company is suing them. So, I think there were the artists I talked to said there were like 2 security guards there when they went there, and they were kind of like,
for 3 skyscrapers, there's 2 security guards.
That's what they encountered.
Right.
So it wasn't hard to find a way in that was not well guarded. So, it's the onus is on the developer to, they failed in many places.
Right.
Abandoning the property, forgetting the security, all this stuff. So,
and then the people of the city is sort of left with this just block of unfinished towers, and then somebody decided, hey, let's paint on it.
It got well. One of them said they got some inspiration from a similar project at Art Basel Miami last year.
Right.
Because there was another structure that a bunch of artists bombed in a similar fashion, but that was about to be destroyed. That was a old healthcare building or something that was slated for demolition. So, but I think one of them said they saw that and figured they could do it in LA.
Yeah, for some buildings that are just kind of chilling here, not set to be
Yeah.
destroyed like the one in Florida, but yeah. So you you actually reached out and you spoke to some of the writers, the artists, as you said, about four of them. And what was the general vibe once you did get connected with some of these people? What was the general vibe? What was it like talking to them? Did you speak to them on the phone? Was it DM? What was it like?
Yeah, both. A couple I just talked to on the phone, and then a
Hmm.
couple just wanted to message me. Um, uh, yeah, I mean, for them, it was just kind of like a great opportunity, you know.
Mm.
Um, and I really got the sense that they were um, like one of them even said, like, you know, when I saw people start to go over there, like I knew I had to do it. Like I knew this was the moment, you know.
Mm.
So I think it was like a very quick process. Like once a few people started getting in there and posting, uh, others were like, "This is it. We got to do it." Um, and you know, it was like 50 people there or more. Uh, you know, all night picking the floor, doing their piece. Um, you know, it seemed to be like a very. It didn't seem like there was any like. I mean, I don't know if there was conflict over who got which floor, but it seemed like everyone was, you know, kind of doing their own thing, and you know, beautiful shots of them like on the ledge at night, like just like really focused and um,
Yeah.
you know,
Speak.
but
Mm. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
well, just like taking back a part of the city that has not been accessible to anybody.
So this is where I would like to maybe talk about the fact that where this article is, right? Where you publish this article. So full disclosure, I've not written. I told you this when you and I spoke offline yesterday. Um, I've only written one piece for Hyperallergic.
Mhm.
Yeah, only one. But Hyperallergic it's an art site. It's not a local politics site. It's not specific to Los Angeles at all. Um, it's not about combating urban blight or debating the merits thereof or whatever. This is a place where you go to read thoughtful commentary about art. And I think, I don't know, man, maybe to me and you, this is an obvious thing. But it seems like this truly was not obvious. I mean, I'm kind of shocked that there weren't a bunch of people just foregrounding the artists and asking, "Yo, what is your motivation? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Tell me your background. Are you worried? Are you none of that?"
Yeah. Um, I mean, I think there's access issues, you know, for
Hmm.
more mainstream art outlets. You know, like you said, Hyperallergic is an art site, but I think they, um, you know, like I do, think of art in broader terms,
Hmm.
and so they cover a lot of, um, you know, how art intersects with everything else. A lot
Hmm.
of like protests in the art world, a lot of the friction that uh, and the growing pains and the tumult that I think is happening in the art world as it globalizes and intersects with larger networks of capital and labor and all this stuff. Um, so I think it makes sense in that respect. But yeah, so for maybe more mainstream art publications, maybe there's issues of access. Um, and I think, you know, people got to get a story out, and
Hmm.
the visuals for this story are so stunning that, like, if you have a drone, you're just gonna shoot drone footage and get that out, you know,
Yeah.
as soon as you can, because that's. And I was super lucky. I don't have a drone. I walked down to the site to take pictures, and there was a guy on the street with like just launching his drone,
Uh-huh.
And I was like, "Oh, hey, are you taking footage?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Is this for you?" Or like, I started talking to him. And I was like, "Would you be okay if, like, could we run some of your photos in the story?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, sure, that'd be great." And so obviously we credited him, but like the drone shots, some of the drone shots from my story were his.
Uh,
And I think the video, I think Hyperallergic did a video piece. This woman Isabel does these great Interstellar. Isabel is her tag, I think, but she does these great video pieces. So I think she used some of this drone footage.
nice.
But yeah, I think if people, they just wanted to run with the visuals to get the story out because it was so, every day there was so much coming out. And I,
Yeah.
maybe it's better that I didn't have the technology because I was like, I just got to get these guys' words. I just got to get the interviews.
True.
And hopefully now more stuff will be coming out. I think, I hope, I think it would be a shame if there wasn't an oral history of how this all went down would be fascinating. I think like just to hear people talk about like minute by minute how it developed.
Yeah. Oh man. See that's one of those things, man. I mean, even as you talk about that, the oral history of this would be incredible.
Yeah.
But then as you know, and again, I think we're both very much novices in graffiti and in street art, or at least I will say that I am. Again, I know enough to know that it's one of those things where a lot of this you just talk about, but you talk about amongst people who are in it, and you don't necessarily talk about it to people externally. You know what I mean? Not everything is for the gram. Not everything is for online. Not everything is a telereporter. However cool the website may be, I know that obviously is a factor here. But I mean, and speaking of, but we have been able to see some of this stuff. We have been able to see some of what the scenes look like. One of the people you spoke to, I think, Merch.
Oh yeah.
Is showing themselves cooking a steak at night as they're just chilling up on the rooftop, not on the rooftop, but on one of these abandoned floors, and then going like eating dinner, going out to work, eating dinner, going out to work. And by work, I mean, lighting the place up.
Yeah. That's really funny.
I mean, who can say that they ate steak at the top or really high up on $1 billion unfinished building as helicopters shine a spotlight on them, trying to find them? That's incredible.
Yeah. No, it's pretty. Like I said, it's pretty breathtaking. And there's other videos. I think I saw one of like a mariachi band or a norteño band or something playing.
What?
I don't know if it was in one of the towers or if the tower's just in the background, is in a different building. But yeah, it was like a little concert. And like you said, there's like bass jumpers now.
Yo, yeah, okay, here we go. And here's a shot of somebody bass jump. Let me pull this up because this one is this is kind of wild. All right, so this is another I believe this is another NBC piece. And the title being "LA Mayor Warns of Dangerous Stunts After Man Appears to Jump Off a Skyscraper." You don't appear to jump. He jumps. I love the caveats in the headline here. He doesn't appear to jump. My boy was jumping.
Appears to show 4 people base jumping from these unfinished towers in downtown Los Angeles.
What?
The same buildings drawing global attention after they were tagged with nearly 30 floors worth of graffiti. And tonight, an urgent warning from city officials.
We do not want to see a tragedy take place, and I guarantee you a tragedy will take place there if that place is not boarded up quickly.
On Friday, the LA City Council issued a deadline for the owner to secure and clean up the site, or else the city will and send them the bill.
The owner of the building should be held accountable, and he should reimburse the city for every dime that is spent.
The chief of police says his officers now surround the property around the clock, stretching already thin resources to their limits.
Okay,
At least 18 people have been arrested in connection to the vandalism and trespassing case, but police say only 4 are locals.
So there is a huge confluence of very commonly said things. A lot of these people aren't even local. The police resources are stretched thin. By the way, the budget, LAPD budget has increased, not decreased. Look, again, however, you wrote about this and I suppose continue to look at this as somebody who writes about art. And so we can talk about the $4 million price tag that is coming up in just a moment. But I'd love to hear, your take on this as art.
Yeah. I think it challenges the conventional notion of the artwork, right? Like, you have an artist who makes a painting which sells for this amount to this collector. This is not that kind of art, right? This is, how do you even, like, what is the artwork? Is it this window that Murch painted? Is it the tower? Is it all the towers? Is it the performance?
Is it the IG post? Is it is it all of that?
Right? So I think of it, I don't, it kind of doesn't make sense to be like, this is good art or this is bad art. Like, this is a phenomenon that happened because there was an ugly, travesty dropped in the middle of downtown. It was an opportunity. So, graffiti, like, where does graffiti come from? It doesn't pop up in Beverly Hills. It doesn't pop up in, Park Avenue. It originated in areas where people needed to look at something better. They wanted to put their name on things that was in their community, in their neighborhood. Right. So it's reflective of conditions in the city. So, like, if you're talking about the real estate boom and bust, or like the gentrification and development and transformation of certain areas of the city, like, whatever it is, those are the conditions that make this possible, but also meaningful, I would say. That was a long-winded answer, so I hope there was something in there that was meaningful. But
I like it. I mean, look, I was check this out. So the other day, speaking of real estate and businesses and all the blight of all this, we want to call it that. Downtown, I was by Pershing Square. I went to they had a WeWork there. There was a WeWork there, which just shut down. And so a friend of mine got me into that because they were shutting down anyway. And so they weren't really even checking people's stuff. They were kind of checking stuff, but they weren't checking it as hard. And so I got in as a guest, and they had free tacos on the last day. So, I'm going to be there. Yeah. And I definitely got my money's worth, which I didn't pay anything. So I definitely got my money's worth. But I walked to, what floor were we on? We were on maybe the 35th floor, I want to say. It was like 35th floor. I stayed there until evening, and you could see the entire city. And I realized, damn, I get to see this for a little bit because basically I scammed my way into a WeWork. And again, nobody cares. The place is shutting down. It's whatever. But only certain people get to see this, truly. And those towers only certain people, if the things were built, if the the extra $1 billion was put in, if the developer didn't run out of money, this wasn't something that just anybody was going to get to see out of their condo. It was going to be only certain people are going to be able to see this. And I think there's something kind of wild about going up and posting a video of yourself on Instagram cooking steak on a little burner as you burn the wall. And some of that graffiti is outside facing, some of it is inside. You can see they're tagging stuff that you're only ever going to see that if you're inside the building also. And there's just something kind of wild about, I don't want to use words like reclaiming. I don't want to say things like taken back necessarily. Maybe that's a little overwrought. But most people will never, you would have to be really rich to be able to have this view right here that we're seeing, this city view. You have to be rich.
Yeah.
I don't know about this person. They may be rich, they may not be rich, but there's a kind of equalizing happening when you go up there. And as art, if we're talking about art, there's a kind of equalizing happening that, look, I'm up here on this building and I'm painting it and my name is here and I didn't pay anything for it.
And it's also there for everybody to see. Like I said, you can see this from, blocks and blocks and blocks around. So yeah, there is an equalizing aspect to it. And I'm not saying rich people shouldn't have nice homes. I'm not even saying luxury development shouldn't exist. But this was a failure of everything, right? On every level, like failure of development, and like Carolina says, if you have an unfinished luxury development with shanty towns at the base of it, like something's going wrong. If you're not housing the people who live in your city, who can't afford to live there, then maybe you shouldn't be building 3-story luxury developments that can't be finished, right?
Yeah. And I love how in chat, I know exactly who this is saying that I think that luxury development should not exist. Someone in chat saying that. But look, if we are to take that argument and take it seriously, which I think we can take it seriously, if you want to talk about inequality, downtown LA is the best place to talk about it. It is the best place. It is one of the best places to talk about, where you have people who are, the people who would be living in this building, were it finished, would be walking right next to people that have no building in which to live.
Yeah.
And have not for years. There's people, you may also yourself walking downtown. There are people who I recognize from when I first got in here in 2015. These people whose names I know. You know what I mean? Like I've been around long enough. And other people would too if they cared to know. And again, just seeing something like this, I can't ascribe intent to the graffiti writers or the artists themselves, but there is something to be said about at least the symbolism of, this is $1 billion development, $2 billion development, really, if you all finished it. And it's right next to a bunch of people who have no roof over their heads. And I'm gonna paint on it.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's like very crystal clear. Like, with graffiti, there are arguments to be made. Like this, family's home shouldn't be graffitied. Maybe this like corner store shouldn't be graffitied. But like, this is like a very binary thing for me. Like, it's like the evil wizard's castle. Like, there's no. It just seems absurd that people are calling it vandalism when, like we said, this is an eyesore for 5 years, and there's no plan to make it habitable. So I don't know if you want to talk about the $4 million plan to
let's do it.
Make it
'cause
less good looking.
Yeah, I think that leads us right into it. And I think also too, again, I mean, maybe that's why part of this has captured a lot of people's attention, because it isn't like the grandma next door, just living in the blue collar neighborhood. Somebody went and broke her windows and tagged up her, her front porch or whatever. This again, I think there is something fundamentally different about it, and I think there is an aspect of that not everybody, but some people have found interesting. But yeah, let me pull up the latest bit of news from this. So this is not a official art site. This is the Los Angeles Times. Shout out to one of my former employers. And the headline here is City Council okays $3.8 million to clean up and secure graffitied downtown skyscrapers. That's okay. So essentially council member, I'm just going to read a little bit of this. Council member Kevin De Leon, which we can leave aside, introduced a motion this week to allocate funds to secure the property and restore the public right of way. Basically saying, he said, I'm not holding my breath waiting for the developer to clean up their property. The purpose of my motion is clear: to prepare our city to take decisive action if the Oceanwide Plaza developer ignores their responsibility, and to put them on the hook for costs incurred by the city. Now, once again, this is the same developer that, this is me speaking now. Once again, this is the same developer that didn't have the money to finish the project, didn't have the money to pay the security, and now we're about to hit them with we're going to pay, we being people in the city, are going to pay $4 million. And then say, by the way, that money that you couldn't pay, here's an extra $4 million you also have to pay. Which leaves some questions.
There's no, the likelihood of us collecting on that is pretty slim, I would say.
Yeah. Now listen, maybe there are some things that you and I don't know. Maybe there's the people very smart and experienced with the process of getting large developers to pay money. Cool. Maybe I'm not privy to these, arcane areas of knowledge. But I gotta admit, if that's how you're gonna phrase it, you need to sell it to me a little bit better than that. Because on the surface, in the article, the way this is being put forward, this really seems kind of like it's not gonna happen. Like it really is just, we're gonna pay for it. So the details of this are: the motion will move $1.1 million in a fund to fence and secure the ground floors of the building, and an additional $2.7 million into a fund for security services, fire safety upgrades, and graffiti abatement. Graffiti abatement, I guess that I'm assuming that means cleaning it up. What? $1.1 million of fence?
Yeah, $1 million fence. It's going to be a G fence, a horizontal slat gentrification fence, I would imagine. No, it's nuts. It's nuts. I think it's insane. It's just, I think, the city's way of saving face and, trying to convince people they're doing something about it. But, again, it ignores the real problem of this pointless monstrosity being there and no resolution in sight visible. And we were talking about what else could be done with that money. A million things: housing, education, health programs. It's like it just seems so misguided, in my opinion.
It truly does. It truly does. And again, I'm willing to suspend disbelief and say, hey, maybe there's just some things that maybe it's more complicated than it seems. But on its face, this seems very uncomplicated, and $4 million seems like an awful lot of money to spend on something that, frankly, I'm not sure is as big of a problem. Now, backing up a little bit, okay, probably not a good thing to have people base jumping off of something in the middle of the city. That seems unsafe. I could see saying, look, we need to have people not do that. Got you. Okay. I don't know if that costs $1 million for a fence. I haven't priced out a fence around a block recently, so I don't know. Seems kind of like a lot, but okay. But yeah, it does seem kind of, certainly feels like, as you said, hey, we're doing something. We're doing something.
Yeah.
We're doing something.
And I think it's a liability thing too. I mean, what if,
Sure.
what if your steak cooking catches a unit on fire, and you don't want 3 50-story skyscrapers burning down in the middle of downtown. But yeah, it just seems like a stopgap that as soon as you put up the fence, then people forget about it. People sneak in again, like, and going back to the base jumping, it's like that happened, like 2 weeks after all of this came out.
Yeah.
After you go down there, the whole block is blocked off by cops. So if they can't stop somebody from sneaking in and base jumping after all this, like, it's just like, how are you going to return the right of way to the public and secure the site with some massive barrier that will prevent people from going in? It just doesn't make sense. I had an idea to create like a ropes course, so people could safely rappel down the building and could tag their name and could pay like $10, and all the money that they raise could restart the development process for the building. And of course make it affordable housing. But it's like, it's just such a punitive response to just, it's like, imagine being like, looking at that and being like, wow, what an achievement. How can we capitalize on this creative energy, right? As opposed to being like, we have to get all this color off the building and return it to its gray, like, boring state for the betterment of the city.
Glory.
Right. Like, it just is so misguided and closed-minded, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the wild thing is that I've seen this said, and I think that perhaps there is some merit to it. The fact that there is all this graffiti on it, the fact that there is all this color on it now, maybe somebody is now thinking about, damn, I mean, shoot, maybe I should buy this thing. Maybe there's some developer out there saying, you know what, I was thinking about somewhere else, but I don't know. There's a little bit of flair here. Maybe I could flip this into something, make this interesting. I don't know.
Somebody sent me another image of a skyscraper, I think in New York, that had like a developer approved graffiti scheme. And say what you want about developer
approved graffiti is a weird oxymoron, but yeah.
Right. But yeah, just to see it as an opportunity and as something that could be transformative, as opposed to just negating all of, because it's basically like there's this response to this thing in the city, right, that has like captivated people, and the reaction is like, don't look at that, like,
right, yeah,
not interested. This is just bad.
Exactly. Don't look.
Yeah.
Don't look. And I will say too that the roughly 4 million, right, thing sticks out to me because for a few reasons. But I have heard one comment I saw, and I think one of your post when you posted on IG said something like, oh, the graffiti taggers are messing it up. This could be converted into affordable housing. Yo, that ain't happening. That's not what this building was for. Like that wasn't. Yo, it would be great.
Yeah.
Speaking of this 4 million, however, perhaps people have heard of this place, the Tiny Homes Village. Now you can say whatever you want to say about this. This is a development basically that houses, I believe the text is super tiny on here. Yeah, they put together 39 1 or 2 person per unit facilities. So potentially close to 80 people, say 70 to 80 people, or actually more than that, at least 80 people, theoretically, right? At least almost 80 people, theoretically, could have, doing the math wrong again. This is why I got an English major instead of a math major. But yeah, 39 units. You can either have 1 person, potentially 2 people, so up to almost 80. Have a roof, have a way to transition into permanent housing, and this cost $3.487 million.
And that's designed by a fancy architect. So
yeah, this is not some bottom of the barrel. You just got somebody who's a sophomore in design school. Yo, hey, make me some buildings real quick. They got somebody who knew what they were doing, not cheap. Put it together, I think, in 2 months. Now, this isn't to say that you could just transfer the money over and it works exactly like that. I understand there's things that are earmarked for this and earmarked for that. Okay, cool. But just when one is talking about downtown and one is talking about housing and one starts throwing around $1 million price tags, $2 million price tag, $3 million price tags, $4 million price tags, you start remembering that there are people who don't have a house. And hey, are there other things we could do with $4 million? The money has to come from somewhere. If you're going to spend it, I'm all for spending money. City should spend lots of money. I'd love it if the city could spend money on helping people who need help. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, it's like we were saying. It seems very short-sighted and more focused on PR than actual what needs resources right now.
Yeah, I will briefly mention. I have one extra question I want to ask you, but I suppose briefly as we speak about PR. There's a name on here which may be familiar to some people. Because listen, I fully understand that not everybody pays a lot of attention to local politics, especially if you're not from LA. Why would you pay attention to that? But the name here, Kevin De Leon.
I think what you're referring to is the end of 2022. There was a audio recording released of a city council meeting where Kevin De Leon and then Council President Nuri Martinez and some other council members were saying some not very generous or polite things about another council member and some communities in LA that were racially insensitive. And it was a scandal. And I think Nuri Martinez resigned, but De Leon refused to resign.
Yeah,
so
De Leon has not, hasn't resigned. And I'll put it like this. The headline in the New York Times is Los Angeles councilman will run again despite racist audio backlash. I need to put it to you, not to get inside baseball on y'all, but there's a fairly high bar for most publications to use the word straight up racist in a headline. And I think it's also quite high for the New York Times. And Yeah, the second paragraph here in this New York Times article says the audio was about as damaging as can be. This is a leaked audio from a meeting, including his saying that a white colleague displayed his black son the way a colleague displayed her status handbag, and his failing to challenge deeply offensive and racist remarks by other Latino political figures in the room. So other people resigned. Also here, Biden told dude Joe Biden told dude to resign. Protesters camped outside his house. He did not. So the only connection here that I'm making is that if one recognizes the name when one is reading this $4 million price tag, that would be why. And my guy's going for re-election.
Yeah, if you want
maybe
to have
this is
your
effective.
name,
Maybe this will hit the voters and say, "Yeah, man, he's doing something. He's doing something about that graffiti. We got to get downtown." It is a strategy. I won't say it's good or bad. It's a strategy.
yeah, I mean, if you want to have your name out there during election, you will probably want it to be more for being the savior of downtown and cleaning up downtown than for a racist audio recordings backlash scandal. And this happened like quickly, right? Like he came out right away on the news saying we got to get this developer to pay for it, and then this bill passed, or the funding passed last Friday. So yeah, he's gangbusters for this thing for sure.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer, man. But I suppose maybe one last question I ask you is, have you spoken to any of the artists since all this, since this $4 million price tag piece of news came out?
Not about that
Okay.
specifically. No. I'm game for a follow up if there's something going on. I try not to like get too into the minutia of it, but yeah, if there's more movement, if the city decides to turn it into a playground to fund its development, I'll cover that for sure.
Yeah.
I have had some larger outlets reach out to me who wanted to possibly do a story on it, and they wanted the writer's info. And I said, no, I'm not going to give that to you. I'll share your info with them.
Right.
If they want to talk. So there may be something bigger or from a more mainstream outlet coming out. I'm not sure. I'm not sure of the angle they're going to take. But yeah, it would be great if somebody in that scene who has credit and respect wanted to do a deep dive on how this went down.
Yeah, no, that would actually be pretty amazing.
Yeah, but it's definitely not. The story's not done, so there's a lot to figure out.
I think so. I mean, again, I think this this most recent, kind of proclamation by city council is going to make people realize, oh, there's an additional cost to all of this sort of thing, and there's some consequences. Okay, what do we want to do with this? But yeah, anything we've missed? Anything you want to add to it?
No, read my story. Read what Carolina wrote. I think our two, not to toot my horn, but I think our two stories are pretty solid. And go look at it yourself. If you live in LA, check it out and see what you think. Don't just go by the sensationalistic headlines, because it's an urban marvel. Like, regardless of your feelings about graffiti in general, like it's pretty impressive. So,
would you say this would be if you had to do, like Spotify Wrapped, they did those, and everybody's doing their own rap stuff. Oh, here's my most opened Word documents of this year or whatever. Everybody's doing these damn things. But I don't know. Do you feel people are doing these, and I feel like at the end of the year, there's always some kind of wrap up. I don't know. What do you think? Is this going to be a contender for, impactful art pieces of the year?
Yeah. I mean, in LA for sure. I mean, one of the bigger stories. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, LA has a short memory. We have a short memory for events and for places and for architecture, and this isn't going anywhere. Like, they're not going to destroy it, and no one's stepping up to buy it. So it's like, physically, this is a big part of LA now.
I think maybe that was, at least for some people, that was the point. Something to think about as art, which I like. Well, I just posted the link. I'll post the link in the chat so people can go read that. Please do go read that. Also follow Matt. We've got your IG info there. But yeah, cool. Man, thanks so much for coming through. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Peace.
Take care.